businesses around the UK. Chris Mason, BBC News.
Well, to get a better understanding of what's been going on, I'm joined by Tim Brightbill, a partner and co-chair of the International Trade Practice at the law firm Wiley Ryan. Thanks so much, Tim, for speaking to us. Now, both leaders, as we heard there, hailing the success. How would you describe it?
Steve, thanks for having me on. I would say this is a solid step forward by the two countries, which will start to move the United States and the UK toward a more normal bilateral trade relationship, and just as importantly, establishing a framework for other countries to follow going forward.
Now, you're familiar with how international trade works. Is it usual to have the agreement sort of before all the details have been worked out? It seems a bit like it's the other way around from normal practice.
This is somewhat unusual, and it's very much a framework. In fact, there are some significant commitments, though, which are listed in the official document just released by the White House earlier today here in the United States. So there are important commitments here for the UK, substantial tariff reduction on U.S. imports of British automobiles down to 10% for the first 100,000 vehicles, commitments for a new alternative arrangement for steel and aluminum, which have been subject to national security tariffs. For the United States, preferential treatment relating to ethanol, which is very important for American farmers who have suffered in some of the previous trade battles. According to reports, there are some UK purchase commitments for aircraft. And then, of course, for the United States, the 10% overall tariff remains in effect. So this is very much a framework. The document is titled General Terms. There'll be lots of negotiations to come, and of course, those details will be very important. But for now, it's a good step forward.
Representatives from the US and China are set to meet this weekend to discuss trade and tariffs. What do you think we should be expecting there, given what we've seen transpire between the UK and the US?
Well, that situation is urgent, given that the current tariff rate on Chinese imports into the United States is much higher at 145%. And so you're correct, there are already reports that the United States might look to reduce those tariffs to around 50%, perhaps in discussions that are going to take place in Switzerland this weekend, I mean to say. And there may be negotiations relating to other Asian countries as well. But that will be a very difficult task. Both sides are quite entrenched, but the situation is dire if something is not addressed quickly.
Yeah, you mentioned the situation being dire. Talk to us about sort of the timeline or the urgency of time, I should say, put on these timeline that the Trump administration sort of imposed on itself by imposing such high tariffs on China. In the meantime, if a deal can't be worked out, where will be the impact felt?
Well, I think what we're going to see is a couple of months of very fast-paced negotiations, whether it's the UK, whether it's China, or the dozens of other countries where the White House has imposed reciprocal tariffs. This has never been done before. Of course, for the UK, there is some precedent in that the United States and the UK got fairly far along on negotiations of a comprehensive free trade agreement under the first Trump administration. So perhaps that can be drawn on as the negotiations and the details are worked out. But to try and tackle all of these agreements with dozens of countries, including very high-profile ones, is going to be quite a difficult task.
Tim, thanks very much for that perspective. Tim Brightbill there from Wiley Ryan.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.